Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good day, good night, good everything. So, in this session, I wanted to talk to you all about some of the lessons that I've learned from my relationships. Some of these lessons consist of things that I've learned about myself, and some of them consist of things that I've learned maybe pertaining to what I want and what I need in my life. The first lesson, and hopefully these lessons will can help some of you. The first lesson is not to allow bitterness to take root. This is something that can easily happen. I think it happens when we don't necessarily deal with things the way that we should deal with them, or when we don't have the proper perspective about a relationship that ends. For me, for the most part, any relationship that I've gotten out of, I have not allowed myself to look at it as something that was negative in the sense. I mainly just say, hey, that just wasn't it. It wasn't the one that God wanted for me. So when I look at the ending of my relationship, it always gives me hope that I'm getting closer to the person that God ultimately wants me, or the type of person that God ultimately wants me to be with. And I also don't look at it as something to be bitter about, because it's really hard dealing with bitter people. Bitterness is nasty, y'all. Bitterness is really comes from unresolved issues. When we allow anger, and maybe when we reflect on situations, we look at it as if that person has wronged us, and a lot of times they have. A lot of times, they did do you dirty on their way out, or even while you were there. But the ending of a thing also can be looked at as the possibility of something new and something better. And you have to tell yourself that is really no reason for you to be bitter about something that ultimately was not healthy for you. It could have been emotionally or physically unhealthy, but for whatever the reason was, it just didn't work. So, lesson one, don't allow bitterness to take root. And the enemy will try you. He will kind of recall certain things that person said or that person did to you, because he's trying to gain interest into your heart. Don't let him. And the way that you don't let him or deny him entry is by making sure that you forgive that person. And that might mean that you forgive that person every time you think about that person, until you actually can look at that person differently. So don't allow bitterness to take root. Number two, please listen to this one. Be healed before you invite someone else into your life, because this is unfair to the other person. Sometimes we want things that we're not ready for. And this is something that I've experienced. I think that there have been situations where the person that I was in a relationship with, I think that they probably did want to be with me, but they weren't they weren't healed. And when you're not healed, you really can't connect to anyone else, because you're still so very connected to your injuries. You're too connected to your wounds. So it's almost like the person that you want and that new person that you're dating is the other woman or the other man. So make sure you are healed before you invite somebody else into your relationship. It's okay not to be ready. Spend some time with yourself first, so that when that person gets you, or when you get that person, they can get a whole person. Not the fearful you with the guarded you, that person who's been injured, not that injured you. Because it's not a good feeling for the other person. Speaking on behalf of the recipient, it's not a good feeling. Number three, this is something that I learned that I really didn't think too much about, because I moved quite a few times. And I guess the older I get, I realize how important stability is. I am a creature of habit. I think I've said that several times. Not to say I'm not flexible, because life doesn't allow you to be rigid, but I do like stability. You like that. You like some type of consistency. Well, I do. I need consistency in my life, at least in some areas, as much as possible. Because when you're in a stable relationship or a stable environment, when different things happen, they don't uproot you because it's not your norm. But when instability is your norm, you definitely don't need to invite anybody into a relationship with you, because you're gonna it's like trying to go to sleep on the waves on an ocean. You can't get comfortable. Number 4, communication is so important. The older I get, the more I'm really good at this now. Now, before, I did expect you to read my mind or my body language at least. Now I'm very vocal. If I don't like something, I will say it. If I'm not okay with something, if something's making me uncomfortable. Because otherwise, when you hold things in, then you start to deal with issues of the heart. Then you start to resent that person and maybe harbor ill feelings towards that person when you really never even communicated what you wanted. So yes, I've learned how important communication is in a relationship. Number 5, this is something I've learned, you all, about me. I am so turned off by the silent treatment. I really pretty much always been like this. And this isn't just my relationships, this is just me, period. I am turned off by people who give me the silent treatment. You don't make me want to communicate with you by not communicating with me. Because what I interpret is that you're trying to punish me. And I don't need anybody in my life who claims to care about me practicing ways to punish me. So I'm turned off by the silent treatment. Number 6, not dealing with issues is completely unhealthy. In a perfect world, we would not have any conflict. We would all get along. We would all be on the same page. But that's not even realistic, because we have our own minds, we have our own opinions, and that's okay. So not dealing with issues as they come, that's unhealthy, because again, now you're putting yourself in a position where you start to harbor ill feelings in your heart. And we have to keep our hearts pure for our own sakes, not just for our relationship, but for our relationship with God and our relationship with ourselves. We have to make sure that our heart is clean and pure. So no, we do need to communicate and deal with issues as they come. Pretending like something's not happening doesn't resolve it. It actually can exacerbate it, make it worse. Number 7, and this is kind of refers back to or piggybacks off of number 6. Don't let things get out of control before you address them. This is a pet peeve of mine. You know how you may have said something or done something to somebody and they never say anything to you until like 6 months later when they're mad. And they're like, well, I didn't appreciate blah, blah, blah. You know, which causes even more conflict, because chances are you didn't even think anything about it. And that was something that should have been expressed at least closer to the time that it was done, the action was done. Sometimes you don't want to deal with things right at that moment, because if you're angry, it's probably best for you to cool off and put yourself in a position where you can actually talk to somebody, because it just doesn't end well when you're angry, because I've been there when I allowed myself to get super, super angry, and then the conversation just went in a totally crazy direction. But don't let things get out of control before you start to address them. You got to learn how to adult this thing. And the way that we adult life is by dealing with the issues as they come. Next one, number 8. If someone truly cares about you, they will not do things to you that you have asked them not to do. I don't understand this. To me, this is like elementary school. You know, if I ask you not to do something to me and then you turn around and do it anyway, what message am I supposed to get from that? Or what message am I sending to you? And it can be an action, it can be words, it can be anything. But if you've expressed to me that, you know, what I'm saying or what I'm doing is making you not okay, and I do it anyway, what I'm really saying to you is that I'm perfectly fine with you not being okay. And that's not something you do to people that you actually care about. Number 9, being insecure and unsecured are two different things. Let me explain. Because sometimes, I hear a lot of guys that will, mainly I think guys say this about women. My opinion, y'all. My opinion, my session, my video. So a lot of guys say women are insecure. Let me explain something to you all. I think most people have an insecurity about something. It can be about, their body. It can be about, their education. And insecurity happens to the majority of people who are honest. So being insecure and being unsecured are two different things. Most of the time, you'll have an issue from a woman when she has been unsecured. That means that whatever environment you have placed her in is unstable. And anytime someone feels like they have been put in a position where they're unsecured, they're going to start grabbing on whatever they can grab on so that they can have their feet flat and planted on the ground. So don't confuse a response or a reaction with being insecure. What probably needs to happen is you probably need to look and see, what environment have I created that has made this person that I'm in this relationship with not feel secured by me or with me. Number 10, be honest with yourself. Be honest with yourself. You really do have to ask this question, and I've had to ask it, and I've had to tell myself the truth about it, even when myself didn't want to know the truth. If that situation you're in with the person you're with doesn't change, are you okay with that? Because sometimes you'll end up in a relationship with someone, and then I feel like sometimes people buy time, and sometimes they buy time with good intentions. Some people really do feel like, okay, if in due season and time, I'll be able to make the adjustments and make the corrections. Sometimes that happens, sometimes it doesn't. But what you have to do is say, okay, as is, like those cars with no warranty. It says as is. If the situation remains as is, are you okay with it? And if you are, then stick it out. If you know you're not, you probably need to just be honest and say, you know what? Maybe later. Maybe if you can get control of this, in a way that I can actually see myself being in it, then, we could maybe try it again. But sometimes people will tell you that they're going to make adjustments or make changes. And if that thing that is causing you discomfort or you're not okay with is really embedded in them, they're not going to change. And if they don't see anything wrong with it, they're not going to change. It likely will take something drastic for them to see that whatever it is an issue. Or they can just find somebody else who can deal with it. But just don't you deal with it if you know that ultimately, big picture wise, that you wouldn't be okay with it. Number 11, I've learned that I am independent, but I don't want to be independent in my relationship. What is the point in being in a relationship with someone when you're not in the relationship with them? I know people all want different things, and this is just me. And that's why you have to find somebody who wants what you want, because if you find somebody, I don't care if you all are attracted to each other, if you get along, if you're like-minded in a lot of areas, but if that person wants to, be one place and without you, and you want to be there and they don't want you there, it won't work. It won't work, because then you'll just end up being alone in a relationship. And if I'm going to be alone, I'm going to be like all the way alone, not alone with you. So I am independent, but I don't want to be independent in my relationships. Number 12. Ooh, now this one right here. If it's a problem to or for that other person, even if you don't see it, even if you don't see the problem, adjust for the sake of your partner. Because here's the deal, you all. Relationships are compromise and adjustments. That means that there's, even now with me, I have some really weird habits. I understand that when I get married, that I'm going to have to make some adjustments. Like, it's nothing for me to sleep 2 hours and jump up at 2 o'clock in the morning and start running my vacuum or running on my treadmill and making all this noise. But I'm going to have to make adjustments just out of respect for that other person. So if it is a problem for that other person, just for the sake of that person, you need to be willing to make adjustments. If you're not, you need to be by yourself, and I stand by that, because selfish people don't need to be in a relationship, because these are the same ones that will want you to make all these adjustments for them, but then you can ask them for one or two things and then they don't want to do it for you. And that's unfair. When you have two people who come together, both of their worlds are supposed to change. And that's just kind of how it's set up, not just one person. So even if you don't think it's a problem, if that person says, hey, when you do this right now, it's causing a problem for me. If you care about that person, unless they're asking you for something unreasonable, if they're asking you, for something ridiculous, then you kind of need to just reevaluate that. But I think most people, if somebody really truly cares about you, they're not going to ask you to forsake your responsibilities, but they may say, hey, how about, can you keep me in the loop about this, or can you at least let me know about that? And if you're not willing to do that because you don't think it's a problem, then hey, you probably need to either be by yourself or find somebody else who thinks like you think. 13, listen, like really listen and act accordingly. It's amazing. I said in one of my sessions, you all, that I'm guilty of this. I can be looking you dead in your face and not hear anything you say. I try not to do that, but usually that happens if there's something on my mind, or if you just start talking about random nonsense. After a while, I'm clocking out. But if you're talking about something that's of significance, that matters, I do a really good job of paying attention to that. So learn how to listen to people. If somebody has shared something with you and they're saying, okay, this is what you're dealing with me, listen to what they're saying, because they might be telling you that, hey, with me, you getting a crazy person, so you need to bail. Or they might be telling you, here are the injuries that I have, so if you don't mind, just kind of be careful. But listen. 14, you need to like each other. I need to like the person that I'm with. Yes, we know about love. The Bible tells us to love. We're going to love. We got all that. But I think you need to like the person, because liking that person determines whether or not y'all hanging around each other. Because most people don't just hang out and hang around people they don't like. We have, and let's be honest, we have people that we love. We have family members that we love that we just can't get along with. I just can't. So you do need to like each other, or I need to like the person that I'm with, and I want him to like me so we can hang out. And I said this one earlier, 15, and I mentioned it before. Selfish people do not need to be in a relationship. And I stand by that. A relationship should consist of two people who care about the other person's well-being. And if you both care about the other person, that means that both people are covered. But when you have somebody who cares about one person and then that person cares about himself, or that person cares about herself, that's not grounds of a solid relationship. And that's not something that I want. I don't want to be selfish in my relationship, and I don't want to be in a relationship with a selfish person. 16. I learned this recently, y'all. Pay attention if he has children. Watch to see if he adjusts to include you or if he expects you to stay on the sideline until he can squeeze you in. I never really thought about that until recently. But I think, my opinion, that women do a lot better of adjusting, of juggling multiple things without dropping them. And so I think sometimes for a lot of men, y'all, I'm not bashing men. I'm going to marry one. Hello. But I think for a lot of men, I think a lot of men struggle in this area. But at least if you can see a willingness to adjust, I would have a lot more patience if I actually saw that you were willing to make the adjustments. And that's just based on their behavior. Because what are you going to do? Like, if you end up married, what are you going to do? Like, they can't come to your house because you're there? That is crazy. So just make adjustments to see how he handles you in that relationship. If he includes you in his space with his children, or if she includes you, because you can't live separate lives together. And plus, I think ultimately children need to see a stable relationship. 17, when you are present, like, be there. Like, really be there. It is, and I know it's kind of a bit of a challenge because we have gotten so, distracted by social media. Like, my phone just rung. Distracted by social media, being on Facebook, being on Instagram, being on Twitter, being on all these different sites. And that's fine, but there's really no room for that in your relationship. You can be sitting at the table with someone, playing a game with them, and then that person is on their phone playing the same game with somebody else. Or you can be sitting there having a conversation with that person, and that person is updating Facebook or Instagram. So they've detached. So there's a difference between being there and being present. You have to be present in a relationship for that relationship to work. Because really the message that you send to the other person is that they don't matter. And that's not a message that you want to send to somebody who you claim to actually want to be with. So when you're present, be there. And that might mean like you have established rules that say, hey, we're not going to, when we're together, when we have our movie nights, or when we're watching, the game together, or when we're, out to eat, unless it's an emergency, we're not going to deal with any, outside distractions. 18. And this is something that I've learned. Give the person the benefit of the doubt, but not at the expense of going blind. And I've learned because I used to just that first red flag. I'm like, what? No. But time has taught me to give the person the benefit of the doubt, because sometimes we misspeak. We don't say the right thing, or we say it the wrong way. Sometimes we just do dumb stuff. Let's just call it what it is. So give that person the benefit of the doubt, but not at the expense of being blind. If they are showing you early on that, that they have a habit of being dishonest by omission, because nowadays people think if they don't tell you something, that technically I didn't lie to you. But it's the same thing. It's an integrity issue. So what you have to do is give the person the benefit of the doubt, but still watch to see, was this a misstep, or is this how you normally walk? Number 19, expect a certain amount of discomfort in your relationship. You have two people with two minds, two way of thinking, two different backgrounds, different interests, different experiences. So you can expect a certain amount of discomfort. That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with that person. That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you or the relationship. It's just goes back to kind of adjusting, getting to know. So just because everything isn't always smooth doesn't mean something's bad. It just means that, okay, you should just expect that at some point there will be some level of discomfort in that relationship. Number 20, respect is so important. And what you think isn't disrespect can be perceived as such. Sometimes people can disrespect you and not realize it. Because sometimes people think disrespect is, you flirting with the opposite sex, or, them calling you out of your name, or just saying negative things to you. Yes, that is disrespect, but that's not the only way that we can disrespect a person or disrespect the person we're in a relationship with. If that person has asked you to do something, let's say if that person asks you not to do something, it kind of goes back to the one before, and you do it anyway, that is a form of disrespect. If that person says for you not to say certain things and you say it anyway, even if you think it's funny, that is a form of disrespect. If you are late, chronically late, and you don't call that person, even if you plan on showing up, that's a form of disrespect. Because what you're saying is that I don't respect I have not considered you enough to be willing to not do certain things or to do certain things so that you won't be uncomfortable. So just because you don't think it's disrespect doesn't mean it's not. And especially if that person tells you that they feel disrespected by what you said or did, you kind of need to listen. 21. Be real. And I said, of course, you don't want to be tacky. I'm not saying be tacky and vulgar, but I'm saying let the person know what they're getting. I did say that we have to be healed to get in a relationship, but that doesn't mean that that person still might not have some bruising, or that person still might not have an injury. So tell people what they're getting if you're serious about them. Now, if you're not serious about this person, you don't have to listen to any of this. But if that person is somebody that you actually wanted to work out with, let them know. Give them enough information so that they'll know what they're dealing with. Because if the way that you deal with issues is by shutting down because of previous experiences, if that person doesn't know that, they're just going to feel like they've been rejected by you. If the way that you deal with issues is by, momentarily not dealing with them, tell that person, hey, I might not always have something to say. I kind of need a moment to process. And when I do that, then we can resume the conversation. But let them know what they're dealing with, because no one should have to read your mind. That's not fair and not even possible. So if you actually want somebody to know anything about you or to have a chance in that relationship, you have to kind of say, here's my stuff. Here's my stuff. I got a few injuries, a few scrapes and bruises, and it might cause me to react this way in these conditions, but I just want you to be aware so that when those conditions arise, that person will know it's not, it wasn't me that he was reacting to or she was reacting to. It was the situation. So be real. Let people know what they're dealing with. What are they going to get with you? 22. I respect the golden rule. But don't just treat people how you want to be treated. Treat them how they want to be treated. Because you're still dealing with a person. And that person knows or should know what they like and don't like. And so if the person is saying, this is what I like and this is what I don't like, but you say, well, none of that stuff matters to you. So that's the situation where you kind of need to turn it around and say, okay, I can't treat you how I want to be treated because I want something different. So I need to treat you how you want to be treated. Number 23, let the person know through words and actions how much he or she means to you. People need to know. Don't ever disregard the person you're in a relationship with by saying, well, you should know by now. Well, I bought you some hot wings. I took you out to eat. I took you to the movies, didn't I? There's nothing wrong. I think that it's really a situation of pride when you can't even tell the person you're with that they matter. No one will ever, not to say you gotta wake up all day, I love you, you matter, I love you, you matter, I love you, you matter. But at some point, it really is okay for you to tell that person how much that person means to you, because it's encouraging. Because life changes, situation changes, and we all need to hear, just because we're going through so much dealing with our jobs and life and bad circumstances, you always want to at least know that to somebody you matter, and that you mean something to somebody. And it needs to be the person you're in a relationship with. 24. Don't take your relationship for granted. If it's not fed, it will die. You cannot take your relationship for granted, because you can have genuine love for a person and you can really want something to work out. But if you don't have two people in that relationship nurturing that relationship will die. Anything that you starve will die. And then the last one, it takes two to be in the relationship. It takes two people who want to be in the relationship. I have this thing, y'all, and that's probably why I don't really have a hard time recovering from relationships, because I have this thing. I don't care what your mouth says, if your actions show me you don't want me, I don't want you. It's like my heart grows hands, and I say, okay, all right then, partner. You don't want me? I'm cool. Because I don't want nobody who don't want me. Because when people don't want you, they treat you a certain way. They treat you like they don't want you. So it takes two people to be in a relationship. It takes two people who want to be in the relationship, because it just won't work otherwise. Both people need to be present. Both people need to be involved. Not just one person always planning something for the other person and that other person showing up like, yeah, I'm here. So you got to look out for the people. You need to look out for the person that you're in a relationship with. You need to communicate. You need to show them that they care, that they matter. You need to be vocal. You need to be respectful. These are different things that I've learned that I want, and also to give. So that's pretty much it. I just wanted to share, and that was a list of 25 lessons that I've learned from my relationships. Like I said, they were either lessons about me, what I wanted, because some of these things I didn't even really pay attention to. Sometimes you don't even know what you want until you don't get it, or until you get the opposite of it. So some of these things have been lessons that I've learned about me and what I want, and areas of my life that I needed to improve. But again, thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you next session. Have a great day.